Good morning and welcome. Before we get started with my presentation, just a couple of thank yous. First, thank you to Representative Charlie Hales for being here. She cares so deeply about East Portland and its needs, and there's a lot of this budget that you'll hear about that reflects that shared priority. So Shamia, thank you so much for all you do for us in the legislature and all you do for us here in East Portland. I'm so happy that you could be with us here this morning. And I also want to thank, let's hear it. We're just talking about how people in public service don't always get enough appreciation, and that's true in the legislature as well. And I want to thank Parks Director Mike Abate and East Portland Community Center Manager Abby McFarland for having us in your house here this morning, because it's a very fitting place to announce this budget and some of the priorities that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks. But budgets are how people in public life express their values. It's how you put values into action. And I love this city, and I am proud of our accomplishments and worried about our challenges. And so this budget is a chance for me to put those values into action and for our city council to work for taking care of what we have and ensuring an even better future for the people that we serve. We are fortunate this year in that the city's budget is stronger, and that's because of good financial management by our city council and by better times that have raised the fortunes of our citizens and our businesses, or at least many of them, and therefore improved the public services that we can provide through city spending. Our city budget this year will be about $3.5 billion, all told. The part that people focus on the most, of course, is the general fund budget, the discretionary budget that pays for things like police and fire and parks, and that budget is about $484.5 million in my proposal. My budget proposes to spend a substantial amount of new money on basic services. It's what the citizens of Portland always want us to focus on. Almost $20 million of this budget will be directed to our city's streets, for paving, for improvements, for safer streets. The main street of East Portland is 122nd Avenue. This budget will pour a substantial amount of money into the improvement of 122nd to make it a safer street and to make it a better street for the citizens it serves in more than just the conventional ways, because it will also prepare that street to be a better transit corridor that TriMet can add improved service to. We're going to continue our commitment to paving and resurfacing more miles of our city streets. As mayor, I'm very proud of the fact that we jumped up the typical annual paving amount from about 35 miles a year to over 100 miles a year, and we're going to continue that enhanced level of effort in taking care of what we have, the streets that we already own. My budget represents a 141% increase in the amount of the city's general fund that goes into streets. Let me say that again, a 141% increase in general fund going to the Bureau of Transportation just since last spring, going from about $12 million to $29 million. So this is a serious commitment by the city of Portland to the streets that we all own and the huge backlog of need that we have in those streets. Another community priority in this city is housing, both affordable housing and dealing with the tragedy of homelessness that we see all over the city. People camping under bridges, people sleeping in doorways. It's a vexing problem for our community, and we have to address it, both for the people that are so tragically outside and for the livability of our city because of the side effects of people camping instead of living under a roof. So this budget will put $106 million of city funding into housing, including almost $6 billion of new funds, again, coming from those new dollars that are available for the city. That will do things like keeping our women's shelter open year-round. Typically in the past, we've closed the women's shelter when good weather arrived. Well, that was a terrible false economy to send those women outside for a few months and call that a solution. So we're going to keep that shelter open year-round. I'm also very proud of the fact that the city of Portland has made a commitment to get all of our homeless veterans inside by this Veterans Day. And this budget devotes another $500,000 to making sure that we actually make good on that wonderful commitment. Public safety, another really important theme in this budget. We're going to make good on the city's commitment to a better relationship between our police bureau and the citizens that we serve. We have a compliance agreement, a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice that lays out very specific things that we have to do to be a better police bureau, to deal more humanely with people who are suffering from mental health crises on our street, and to serve the diverse city that our police bureau needs to serve. So we will add analysts in the police bureau to crunch the data that the Department of Justice needs to see to make sure that we're making progress. We will support enhanced services for victims of domestic violence with additional police positions focused on that type of crime. And we'll make a commitment of $500,000 towards a joint venture called the Psychiatric Emergency Center that's being led by hospitals but also supported by county governments and the city of Portland, because we need to have a safe, humane place to take people when police officers or emergency medical providers pick someone up off the street who's in a mental health crisis. Simply taking them to a hospital emergency room is not good enough. And you all know the story that I told at my City Club speech about Dolores McClintock, who was released from a local hospital in the middle of the night and then went out on I-84 with a handgun, or what looked like a handgun, and caused a crisis which resulted in him being wounded and taken into custody. That's terrible public health and terrible public safety, and we can do a lot better than that. So I'm very happy that the city will be a minor partner, but an important one in the development of this new important public safety and public health facility. Another theme in this budget is kids, and it's something that's very close to my heart, and it's one of the reasons why we're having this meeting here today. On March 14th, a young man named Dante Mathis was here, actually, just across the street. There was a party here in this building for 16-year-olds that night, and Dante was in a crowd of kids walking up 106th towards Stark. As he walked in that crowd, in fact, just as he stood in front of the doors of the police precinct across the street, he turned and began firing back into the crowd with a handgun. Blessedly, he hit no one. And even more blessedly, the two police officers who were coming out of the front door of that precinct did not fire, even though they had their hands on their holsters, and he was standing in front of them shooting at kids. Another police officer, at risk to himself, chased him around the corner and up the sidewalk and into the parking lot nearby, where he was arrested without any harm to him or to an officer or anyone else. Well, some people could call that a public safety success story. In the over 40 gang violence incidents that we've had this year, we've had a number of arrests and quite a few people now in the criminal justice system. But I wouldn't call that a success. I call that a community failure. And we can do something about that by giving kids more positive options than just being out on the street. Now, of course we have to have a gang violence team in the police bureau. Of course we have to arrest and deal with criminal justice problems as they occur. But we need to get upstream in the lives of our kids and give them more positive choices and positive opportunities. And that's why there's a strong focus in my proposed budget on services to and support for the youth in our community. Specifically, I'll be dedicating a $2 million fund towards youth in our city that will make recreation more free and more available to more kids. Here's some of the things that that program will do. We'll provide free access to Dishman Community Center for kids that are 18 and younger all summer. In 4 of our community centers, Mount Scott, Dishman, St. John's, and this one, East Portland, will have 40 Saturday nights a year where there's free recreation available to the kids in this part of the community. But we'll go on from there and do more. We will work with a wide variety of community partners, and we've met with a number of them and seen such exciting support for this project. We will also take the Montevilla Community Center and convert it to a teen center. And then we'll more than double the existing teen program across the system. That means that we'll have free and available recreation for at-risk kids and for all of our kids across the city. It's the right thing to do. Some might say, well, that's an extravagance to provide free recreation for kids. I don't think any of us in this building think that. And again, think back to Dante Mathis's situation. That young man is now in the criminal justice system. He will be charged under Measure 11. If he is convicted, he'll spend 68 months in jail at $263 a day. His incarceration alone will cost $545,000. That doesn't count the cost of his prosecution, his parole, and worse, maybe his subsequent reoffense. $540,000 just to keep that young man in jail. And again, he was 16, shooting at a 17-year-old. We can do a lot better than that. And even if all you care about is the dollars, you've got to admit that spending a couple $1 million on giving our kids free and available recreation choices and working with the faith community and the nonprofits and the school districts across this city as partners to do even more than we can do with the city's dollars alone is the right thing to do from